Good afternoon, everybody. I think everybody's already entered the webinar. So welcome to the ATF, the Animal Task Force webinar to present our vision paper and strategic research and innovation agenda. This webinar will be 1 hour sharp. And I have with me today to present to you this the SRIA and the vision paper, Frank O'Mara, president of the Animal Task Force, and Jean-Louis Perrault, former president of the Animal Task Force. Just a few information before we start, and you have it also, this information on the chat. How to use Click Meeting, which is the platform that we are using for this webinar. So you should choose Chrome, Firefox, or Opera. If you have sound problems, you have to check your internet speed. You may attend the webinar by phone as well. The display, click on full screen display. It will make it easier to check all the the chat and everything. On the chat, if you have any questions during the presentation, you may write it on the chat box. It's on your bottom right. It's moderated, and the questions will then be asked to the speakers at the end of the presentation by me. In case there are a lot of questions, I may have to, select or try to group them into questions. I will do my best. This webinar is being recorded, so the presentation will soon be available on the internet, as well as the recording on our YouTube channel. If you have any difficulty using Click Meeting, please write a message in the chat to Susanna and start your message like at Susanna. She's here and she will take care of any problems that you might have. So let's start because time is short. I will briefly present to you ATF and our activities. So we are a public-private platform at EU level and promote research and innovation with researchers, farmers, and private sector organizations. We promote a sustainable and competitive animal production sector in Europe. And we do this by fostering knowledge development and innovation at the EU level and covering the whole, or at least doing our best to cover the whole animal production chain. We work in close collaboration with several ETPs and several stakeholders and European partners. Some of them are stated in here. Sorry, I have to move forward. We have a group of members and we have two main groups, industry and farmer representative organizations, but mostly we are knowledge providers or we have knowledge providers members. We gather most of European area and we work in close collaboration with each other. I'm sorry, I'm not doing this. Now it's good. Currently, the presidency and the secretariat is composed by Frank O'Mara, which will be speaking soon. It's the president of the Animal Task Force. He's also director of Chagask. We have Giuseppe B, representing the VP, the vice presidency for the research organizations and knowledge providers. He's also head of the swine research industry of Agroscope, Switzerland. Ana Granados is our vice president for the industry organizations. She's also director of EFAB and general secretary of ABRTP. And the secretariat composed by me, Secretary General, and Susana de Magalhães, assistant to the secretary. I'm sorry. We provide input, we gather, and we meet regularly with several stakeholders at EU level. We provide input for EU research and innovation agendas. How? By engaging in dialogue with sector innovation and key stakeholders and enhancing cooperation at EU research and innovation areas. For this, we enable knowledge exchange and act as a source of expertise. We gather needs, we gather ongoing projects, data, and then we put out what are the gaps and what are the research needs for further development. We have had in the last years several themes on which we focus our activity. From 2020, we looked at livestock, what it has to offer to biodiversity and soils. Then we went beyond feed versus food competition. We focused after on the livestock emissions and sustainable livestock systems. What does it mean? Currently, we have our theme of this year is livestock is more than food. And the reason why we are here, we produce several documents throughout our activity. I would focus our attention on the last policy briefs on biodiversity in 2021 and the policy brief on methane, agricultural methane in 23, and what brings us here today, the vision paper and the strategic research and innovation agenda published both this year. On this, I will pass the word to Jean-Louis Perrault. Jean-Louis, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So this is now we go deeper in the presentation of the strategic research and innovation agenda and the vision of our the ATF vision. It's clear that today we have a society which calls for new food system, more sustainable food system. Strongly, we have this year some farmers' protests. So not a competition, but how we can make coherence between the Green Deal and the farmers' expectation. And all these demands are relayed by the political agenda. And we have quite recently the Draghi report. We have a strategic dialogue on the future of EU agriculture and so on, the Green Deal, the Farm to Fork strategy, the biodiversity strategy, so a lot of documents. What can we do in this aspect? What are the ambitions of Animal Task Force? The first is to produce a vision paper, which was the first step, to give the new vision of the future role of responsible livestock system in sustainable agri-food chain and what are the pathway of progress. It is very important. It's not necessary to give the right system for the future, but the right pathway of progress. And after, we have the strategic research and innovation agenda to present the different key areas and priorities for research and innovation at EU level. And what are the priorities which came from the vision paper? So we have a vision, and what kind of research we need to support the vision, considering the recent and ongoing research and new instrument promoted by the Commission, and notably the mission, soil mission, for example, partnership, for example, animal health partnerships. Our vision, we are convinced, totally convinced, fully convinced that the Green Deal provides the right direction, first. Second point is that food security is still an issue for Europe. After the COVID crisis, the Ukrainian crisis, we understand and we realize that food security is still an issue and we need not to forget it. And livestock is not only a problem, it could be part of the solution. So the challenge is to make progress toward good balance between food security, environment, societal demand, and research aim to provide knowledge and solution to tackle this challenge and to develop innovate. And the new innovation must integrate both biotechnological and social science. In the past, we have a lot of research on biotechnical approach, and we sometimes forget social science, which is very important to tackle the societal demand. In our vision, we consider that we have a huge diversity of farming system, livestock farming system. You see in this map that we have region in Europe in red with very intensive farming system. We have region in green with very extensive farming system, grassland-based ruminant mainly. And we have in yellow part of Europe where we have no more animal or not enough animal to maintain, for example, the soil quality. So we recognize that all types of livestock farming system in European countries are pertinent, but we need to make progress for all of them. And this system could be different according to the local economic, to geographical, and to societal context. And we need to have solution and new innovation for this different system and different parts in Europe, which is a challenge. Considering the challenge and the driver of change of the livestock system, we have 4 key areas. We have the climate, we have the resource and ecosystem and biodiversity, we have issue about health and welfare, and we have issue about the society. And for all these aspects, or almost all of them, livestock can have positive aspect or negative aspect. For example, for climate, it's sure that livestock produce greenhouse gas emission with a negative impact on climate. But in the same time, some livestock farming system can sequester soil carbon. Concerning resource, ecosystem, and biodiversity, we have some feed food competition. Livestock use biomass, land, and water, and it could be in competition with over use of this resource. We have some ecosystem degradation, excess of nitrate, for example, in surface water. But in the same time, livestock aim to recycle non-edible plant biomass into the food chain. We can have value for no-cropping area in marginal land. Only livestock, ruminants or horses can produce food. We have livestock can be used to manage landscape management and to close the cycle of nutrients as nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus. For health and welfare, we have a lot of issues concerning animal welfare, zoonosis, antimicrobial resistance, and the question of what is the right amount of consumption of animal source food for human health. Concerning the society, we have also negative aspects. First, the level of income of farmers is sometimes too low. We have the question of generation renewal. We have the societal aspect, but sometimes society like farmers, but don't like the farming system. And we have problem of consumption of animal source food, which is now a societal issue. But in the same time, livestock contribute to European economy, contribute to rural vitality, to cultural issue, and to landscape preservation. So both positive and negative aspects. When we look at to the future, we need to redesign the place and the role of livestock within the sustainable agri-food chain. And livestock should be considered as a key component of the solution. Livestock is part of the circle between crop, manure, land. The objective is to reach zero waste, and livestock is a key in this system because they are recyclers by nature. They recycle non-edible biomass into food chain. They provide nature-based organic fertilizer to close nutrient cycle. They provide byproduct for pharma, biofuel, textile, feed. This point is most often forgotten, but it is very important. We provide ecosystem services, and we can enhance, thanks to livestock, crop diversification with additional benefits, notably in terms of pesticide use. So how we can, finally, the objective of the research is to increase the net social and environmental benefits of livestock while ensuring the costs are equitably distributed among the different actors. So what we call responsible livestock, it's slightly more than sustainable livestock. By responsible livestock, we mean livestock farming in circular and resilient agriculture, ensuring food security, and in the same time, keeping resource use within the planetary boundaries, promoting the provision of ecosystem services and biodiversity, reducing the negative net environmental impact of livestock farming, providing high welfare standards for livestock and well-being for farmers. So the 2 points, livestock, welfare and well-being of farmers, providing better human health and well-being, contributing to a vibrant rural livelihood and increasing the ability of the sector to withstand with physical and financial stock. It will be very important in the future with new epizoonotic issue, with climate change and so on. So to reach the objective and to move toward a more responsible livestock, we have 3 pathways of progress, which is circularity, efficiency, and diversity. Considering efficiency, it's efficiency at the production unit level. Its production unit could be an animal, could be a herd, could be a farm, and we need to improve efficiency. Circularity is to limit waste And we need to consider what we can exchange between different production units, between different herds, between different animals within the herd, between different farms, between different regions. And diversity, it's both an objective. Biodiversity is an objective, how we can keep biodiversity, but at the same time, we can use diversity to promote more sustainable livestock farming system and more diverse livestock farming system, which is very important to maintain a high level of resilience of the food system at European level. And this diversity could be considered both at gen levels, production unit levels, system levels. So, for example, very intensive dairy system versus grassland-based system, both are useful and both for the society, using all the tools and opportunities offered by the technology. So whatever the objective, we have now in the era where we have artificial intelligence, we have digital tools, a lot of captors, robotics, and which can, all this technology can help to move toward a more sustainable, responsible livestock system. And we promote, finally, in our document, an holistic approach of research, which is the add value we can reach at European level, working both at animal level, biological function, genome, cognition of the animal, microbiota, epigenome of the animals. We have research at the same time at farm level, considering digital tools, robotics to help farmers, working condition of farmers, manure management, housing of the animals, feed production, herd management, and so on. And at the highest level, or more global level, we will consider regional organization of the farming system, the societal issue concerning consumption of animal source food, the question of markets and price, the role of public policies, what will be the good public policies in the future, and what are the links between the livestock system and the cropping system to close nutrient cycle. So this is the brief presentation of our vision. So circular approach, keeping in mind efficiency and diversity, and holistic approach of research considering the different levels. And now I will give the floor to Frank, and Frank will give you information about the content of the strategic research agenda in itself. Frank, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Jean-Louis, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to, in the next couple of slides, outline the key points of the new strategic research and innovation agenda, where we try to suggest the priorities for research in the Horizon Europe programme that will contribute to enhancing the innovation and sustainability of the livestock production sector in Europe. And we have organised the strategic research and sustainability agenda around four main sustainability domains and one cross-cutting issue. And the sustainability domains, they're outlined there on the slide. I won't read through them now because I will go through each of them individually on the next number of slides. But just to say, you know, they each on its own is a very important objective for livestock sector and for transitioning livestock food and farming systems for the future. And each of them will have its own objectives and its own impacts, and we think each separately but also together certainly deserve support and attention from European research and innovation funding. We're very conscious that our strategic research and innovation agenda, you know, does not exist in a vacuum, that there are already a large number of initiatives of relevance to livestock farming and to research and innovation in livestock farming that exist in the European research and innovation landscape. And on this slide, we've tried to capture the main initiatives that are ongoing, that are closely aligned to the SRIA. And these include the partnerships in agriculture and in agroecology, in animal health and welfare, and in agriculture of data. and it includes the EU missions in terms of adaptation to climate change and a soil deal for Europe. And also, there are a number of important projects ongoing at the moment, and we've outlined three of them there on the bottom of the slide: Livestock, or resilient livestock farming, Step Up, and Pathways. So as I said, the SRIA does not exist in a vacuum, and we recognise that a lot of activity is ongoing, and the partnerships and the missions, all have their own structures, and we would hope that the SRIA would be of use to those in terms of developing their research and innovation priorities. So on the next 5 slides now, I'm going to go through each of the sustainability domains in turn, and just talk a little bit about the challenge and what then are the main research and innovation areas. There's obviously a lot more detail in the document, and I'd encourage you all to read that, because in the webinar, really all we can do today is give you an outline of the areas, and hopefully you will find the time to read the document. I would also say that on each of the slides, we remind you that we seek to make progress across three key pathways for each of these. So that's the pathways of efficiency, of circularity, and diversity. Those approaches, or those pathways, are relevant to each of the five sustainability domains. So the first is a very important one. It's the area of natural resources, climate, and biodiversity. And in the context of the vision paper, here we are talking about rethinking livestock farming within the context of circular agriculture. And the challenge here is to redesign livestock systems that will fit into this vision for livestock, and will capitalize on the ecological niche that animals have, which, as Jean-Louis outlined, is that they are upcyclers or cyclers of biological materials, and they're also providers of organic manure. So how do we capitalize on those two strengths of livestock systems so that we can design better systems for the future? And the second big challenge we see here, is to shift away from focusing on the efficiency of a single part of the system. So, towards looking at efficiency at the whole system level or the territory level. So this idea that, yes, it is important to have efficient animals, but just because you have efficient animals doesn't mean you have an efficient system, or that the whole system at a territorial level is operating efficiently, and we need to be conscious of those three levels of efficiency. So the main areas for research and innovation in this theme are as follows. The first one being the development of climate smart farming systems that will contribute to biodiversity restoration. And here, the big areas of research are around greenhouse gas mitigation, around adaptation, and around biodiversity restoration. The second area is to optimize the synergies in livestock, between livestock and cropping systems, so we can get this circular agricultural system. And here we feel there's a need for more research and innovation around mixed systems, around the use of innovative feeds, around how can we make better use of inedible biomass, and what regional differences and specificities do we need to consider. The third area is the efficient and safe utilization of manure, which is a very valuable product of livestock, um, but if used badly or poorly, can cause problems with, for instance, water quality or sanitary issues. So the efficient and safe use of manures, and the development of refinery techniques that would help to support circularity are important areas here. And lastly, the area we've pulled out is the role of livestock in organic farming. And here, the development of climate smart farming systems and low input systems for monogastric animals, and circularity in organic farming are the three main topic areas that we have identified. So the second domain is animal health and welfare. Again, a very important area, very high on the consciousness of consumers and the general public. And here the challenge is in, I suppose, to take the One Health approach, and how can we get higher or better integrated management of animal health and welfare, and develop the links between that and human well-being. And the areas that we have identified for research and innovation prioritization are firstly, from the point of view of the animal, the sensory, the cognitive, and the emotional capacities of animals and their state of consciousness. And that is an area which has developed a lot in the last number of years, but there is still a lot more work to be done in this area, so that we can better understand how animals perceive their environment and their state, and we can better understand the link between animal welfare and human well-being. The second area is to manage animal welfare as a prerequisite of animal health, and this, again, is an area that's well recognized, the link between good animal welfare and good animal health. And while we know quite a bit on this, I think there's still a lot of progress that needs to be made on that. And also then the interaction between individuals and that are reared as part of a group. So the difference between an individual perception and a group perception, for instance. The third area is around the management of immunity and microbiota for animal health. And the microbiota has become a very significant area of research over the last 20 years, and our understanding of the microbiota and its impact on many aspects of human or animal functioning is now better understood, but it is still an area where a lot of scientific advance can be made. And that is around the topic areas around the management of animal immunity and the regulation then and function of the microbial communities that exist within animals, whether it's in the digestive system or whether it's in the reproductive system, or whatever. And finally, the fourth area is towards durable livestock systems that will guarantee animal health and welfare. And here we're talking about improved rearing practices, more efficient and prudent use of antimicrobials, recognizing the large amount of antimicrobials used in livestock that we need to reduce. And finally, the development of indicators and decision support. And again, just to remind you that we need to make progress around the three pathways of efficiency, circularity, and diversity in relation to these priority areas. The third domain is food and nutrition security in a One Health approach. And here the challenge is, um, how can we, first of all, know the levers and then design systems that will foster animal source foods that have the desired qualities throughout the chain? So, what are the levers and that we need to use throughout the production chain so that we get the desired animal source food uh, at the end of the process? Secondly, how agroecological or smaller scale production systems, which are very much a priority across European policy, how will they impact on product quality or animal source food quality, and also on variability? And how do we organize the processing industry for these smaller scale or agroecological producers? And the third challenge is around the best use of animal biomass in a circular bioeconomy. So the three priority areas here are, firstly, to improve insights into the consumption of animal source foods and human health. And this is obviously a very topical and sometimes contentious area. What is the benefits or the detrimental effects of animal source foods on human physical and mental health? And also, what are the alternatives to animal protein, and how do they um, how do they compare, I suppose, and to animal protein in terms of quality and functionality? The second area is the management of the nutritional, sanitary, and sensory qualities of animal source foods. And obviously, the nutritional quality is very, very important, and sanitary quality is almost taken for granted, but it requires a lot of effort to ensure that it exists. And finally, we don't just eat food for nutrition, we eat food for enjoyment. So we need to understand the sensory qualities of animal source foods. So looking at that ABP is animal-based products, but it's the same thing as animal source foods. Looking at how we can manage the quality of those right along the production system from farm to the plate, and how we can monitor the quality of animal source foods. And the final area is this whole area of functionality and bioactive properties of animal source products and byproducts. And there's a lot of research that is very productive, I think, in the whole area of bioactive compounds of interest for human health in that exists in animal source foods. And of course, we have the non-food applications of animal byproducts as well. The fourth domain is livelihoods and economic growth. And I think, this is a very important one, obviously, for livestock producers and indeed all farmers. But we know that livestock farming is generally not a highly profitable enterprise. So, better understanding the socio-technical and socio-economic transformation that's required for a more sustainable livestock system. And secondly, involving stakeholders in the innovation processes and contributing to decision makers. They're the challenges we see here. The four research and innovation areas are what are the drivers around the evolution of the livestock system? And, John Louis has referred earlier to the farmer protests. We know consumers are hugely important. What are the trends there and trends in markets and so on? The second area is diversity and diversification to support multifunctional farming systems. So, we understand the importance of diversity, both within and between livestock systems. How do we best manage that so we get an overall better outcome? And what are the roles of consumers in terms of driving that diversity and diversification and multifunctional farming? The governance of the sector to promote change over time. And this was a very significant part of the strategic dialogue. So, how can we get a better governance system with coordination between stakeholders and all the actors along the system? And what's the role of public policies to change the system? Where does agroecology and the digital transition fit in, and what concerns have we with regard to those around governance? And finally, how do we evaluate livestock systems? And I think most people are familiar with life cycle assessment, but there are limitations of that, and there are both attributional and consequential factors that need to be figured in. And finally, how do we assess the framework of the whole package of services that livestock farming can offer? The last area to mention then is the cross-cutting issue of the animal as a system. And here, I suppose, it's about ensuring that we are optimizing and developing the animal's capacity to adapt to the many changes that livestock production systems will face. And I suppose changing our vision of animals from this static vision where we're trying to improve a particular part, whether it's reproductive performance or genetic merit or whatever, to a more dynamic vision where we're integrating all the various phases of development and all the various physiological traits that are of relevance, so that we can have a better sense of what's the long-term effects on livestock and on livestock systems. So the areas that we've identified here are to understand the early development of animals and how their phenotypes develop over that period so that we can have more robust and adaptable animals. Secondly, to characterize the genetic resources that are available within livestock farming systems, and how do we uh, assess their potential and then take advantage of the diversity of genetic resources that we do possess. Thirdly, looking towards more multi-performing animals. We can't, as I said, just focus in on feed efficiency or reproductive performance. We've got to look at that in the context of animal immunity, the role of microbial communities, the role of precision livestock farming. And finally, research infrastructure is obviously very important if we're going to be able to take advantage of all the expertise that is there and that we feel should be supported. And obviously, there's a certain role for infrastructure at an EU level or cross-country level, um, so that we can get better use of resources uh, and share our collective resources. So if we the proposition that we are putting forward is that if this research and innovation agenda is supported, it will help us to move along the trajectory that we need towards more responsible livestock. It will help to deliver this transition to responsible livestock that we feel is important. So we'll end this part of the presentation by reminding you what we have defined responsible livestock to mean. I'm not going to read it all out again, but you see the various aspects. It's a it's a multifunctional definition of livestock, and that's what we have to aspire to. And we think research and innovation has a very important role to play in getting us to that state. So I leave it there now, Anna, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Jean-Louis. So we now start, we can start the question period. I will just eventually move on to the next slide, and while you are writing your questions, just to remind you that we will have in Brussels on the 20th of November, the next seminar on our theme, Livestock is More Than Food. You can register online, or you can go to Brussels and discuss with us in presence. I don't see any questions. I'm not sure if people are shy or are still writing. So maybe I will, oh, okay, we have one, wait. I'm gonna put this one, okay. Okay, so why not ditch LCA and use proper methods to evaluate agriculture and livestock systems? Use systems analysis. Methods matter. Define what the method should deliver in assessment of livestock systems. So something that we have been discussing in our meetings. Frank, you want to start, and then maybe
Yeah.
Jean-Louis, you
So
want to, yeah.
look, I think last year we had as our theme of the year sustainable livestock systems. What does this mean? And in that we certainly explored the the limitations, but also the uses of life cycle assessment, and certainly there are limitations in it, and we do need a more holistic assessment of livestock systems. I think it's one of the problems when we just look at livestock systems. In a life cycle assessment method, it's usually just looking at emissions on a per kilo of product basis. It favors more efficient, intensive systems. It doesn't take account of all these other things that are on the slide there, the non-food attributes of livestock. So we certainly recognize its limitations, and we are very supportive of developing more wide-ranging frameworks with which to assess livestock systems. And that is one of the areas that we've identified in the SRIA that does need additional work.
Yeah, Jean-Louis, you want to jump in also?
Yes, when we use LCA analysis, we have a clear photo of the current system, but it doesn't provide evidence for changing the system. And it doesn't provide the way and the pathway of evolution. We have a lot of questions about the functional unit. Is it the kg of product? Is it hectares of land? Is it a nutritional value? And the response will be different according to the functional unit. We need to evaluate, when we change the system, we need to evaluate the consequences. So we need to develop consequential analysis. And if we reduce livestock in some part in Europe, the consequences will be different according to the new land use. And it is not taken into account into the current LCA analysis. And most important for us, the first point is that we claim and we are sure that livestock is recycler by nature. So we never evaluate the circularity in the agricultural system. And the current LCA does not evaluate the circularity in the system. So it's very, very important to develop new method or to improve the current LCA to evaluate circularity, because it is the basic role of livestock.
Yeah, if I may just add to that, ongoing projects are also looking at that, and Step Up is one of them to eventually move beyond LCA or other metrics. So thank you for both. We have another question. What do you believe are the current main challenges that could be addressed by robotics and IoT in precision livestock farming? So precision livestock farming directed. So the challenges between robotics and Internet of Things. Frank, you want to start?
So it's not an area I'm expert in myself, but I feel one of the big challenges that we have is this whole area of generational renewal. And one of the issues with that, well, there are many issues, but you know, profitability of agriculture and livestock farming being a huge one, but also the workload and any automation or use of robotics can help in that in a sustainable way. And by sustainable, I mean economic as well as other domains of sustainability. I think will be very welcome. I think also for capturing phenotypes and for you know, robotics gives us um, great opportunities there to capture very rich data. So that's where I would see some of the opportunities.
Jean-Louis?
Yes, I fully agree. In addition, that I think that the precision livestock farming system can help farmers to detect some dysfunctionment of the system before a real health issue or welfare issue of the animals. So I think it's very, very important for this point. The second point is that using PLF is not in itself, it's not a solution. It is part of the solution when we have a mixed approach with zootechnical approach and PLF approach. And I think that exploring phenotype, exploring the behavior of the animals, exploring the ambience in the building, it's very important to monitor temperature, humidity, concentration of ammonia, and so on. So we need also to monitor not only the animals, phenotype or behavior, but also to monitor the building and the atmosphere in the building. And for more extensive system, I think that we can learn a lot from GPS analysis of the herd.
And could I also add, Anna, that increasingly
Yep.
it's important that where farmers are, you know, adopting new practices, that there is evidence of that. So whether it's a new practice, you know, maybe a feed additive to reduce greenhouse gas emissions or whatever it might be, that there is a way of capturing that information so it can be verified. So I think robotics and the Internet of Things potentially are very useful in that regard as well.
If I may just add also to what you both referred, data analysis, because you know these robotics can help also to, but the challenge would be to analyze all the massive data that might be generated. Then it would be also a challenge. So moving on, and I'm sorry. What could or should be changed concretely in the CAP or CAP to better support positive externalities and minimize negative ones? So more political eventual question. Frank?
Yeah. So I'll give a tongue-in-cheek answer. The cap needs to be, I suppose, made bigger, um, because we are, you know, it's a common thing that stakeholders will say, and I think it was very well discussed in the strategic dialogue that there is more asks of farmers in relation to, you know, other dimensions, not just to produce food, which the cap was initially formed for. Now also we have many environmental goods and benefits that that the cap is promoting, and um, the the strategic dialogue, for instance, it did call for the establishment of a just transition fund, a separate just transition fund for agriculture. You know, that if we're asking farmers to do things or to change their system, that should be a separate fund outside of the conventional cap, and also nature restoration, which farmers are being asked to lead on again, rather than funding that from the existing pool of money in the cap. That needs a separate fund. So I think that's recognizing that the cost of living is increasing a lot, not just for all all citizens, but for farmers included, and the cap has stayed relatively static in nominal terms over the last number of years. So that's one thing about the cap. But I suppose more targeted then would be the obvious thing, to try to better reward the things that will have the greatest impact. That would be, I think, another priority.
Johnny?
It's difficult to respond to this question. We are not politicians, and we have no all the tools in our hands. For me, I think that the cap is a big boat which moves quite slowly. So we will never have a big bang. It's clear. So we will have successive adaptation. It is the first point. I think that to move to a more responsible livestock, I think we need to reward and the ecosystem services provided by the livestock. So we need to evaluate these ecosystem services. This is the first point. The second point is to reduce the negative aspect. We can imagine some constraint imposed to the farmers, not necessarily taxes, but putting some strong constraint more than we have today. Notably, for example, to assume a reduction in a greenhouse gas emission or a reduction in nitrate emission. So I think it's important, but we need to monitor also and to evaluate all this negative impact. It is not so simple. And for the policymaker, we need to develop good indicators and very easy used indicators. And it is very important. For example, if we want to reward the contribution of livestock to biodiversity or to some livestock system to biodiversity, what should be the indicators? And we need to work on this aspect because today we have no good indicator. We have very precise indicators on biodiversity, on the soil, on the floor, on butterfly number, this kind of thing. But it is much more complicated to evaluate. So we need to develop proxy, and it will be part of the research. And I think that to make a better or more efficient cap, we need to have more exchange between researchers and policymakers to understand what are the expectations of policymakers in terms of indicators to produce the best policies.
Thank you, Jean-Louis and Frank. We're starting to have quite a few questions. I will have to either join them or choose. This one, I think it's a good question. How can value chains effects be considered in responsible livestock systems if most of the information, crop management or feed production is not available or only publicly available? So, how to put the data, how to basically assess if the livestock systems definition is being put forward. What do you think?
I suppose, look, we have to keep improving the data we have available to us, both for the livestock systems and the upstream and downstream components of the overall production chain. So again, I think that data is improving all the time, and obviously it's again a very kind of a political question in some areas, or not a question, but an issue in terms of the importation of feeds from areas where maybe sustainability practices would not be as good as you would like. But I think what we can do in Europe, at least, is make sure that our own systems are as sustainable as possible, that we've good information on them, and that where we do need to supplement our feed resources from other places, or our fertilizers or whatever, that we do that as sustainably as possible, and that we as scientists develop the framework to allow that to be assessed as effectively as possible.
And shared the information. Jean-Louis, you want to add something?
No, nothing to add for this response. I think that just before we discuss about the cap, I think that the other important actors, stakeholders in the system are the actors of the value chain, and all actors of the value chain should work in the same direction to reach not only responsible livestock but responsible food chain. To be honest, and livestock is only part of this. And because we are ATF, we work a lot about livestock. But we also need to consider the crop sectors and the industrial sectors. I think it's all these sectors should work hand in hand. It's not so simple in the real life, but it is very important. And we can have some example where some downstream actors impose some practice to farmers to move toward a more sustainable, more responsible system. It is also one way of action. Very important, for example, if we consider to move toward a more balance between livestock and crop sector in the different regions in Europe. We cannot move livestock from part of livestock for very intensive part to part where we have no more livestock. But perhaps using actors of the food chain, we can organize something. We have example in France where actors from the pig sectors and actors for the wheat sectors try to work together to reintroduce pig in some part of France. This is a way of progress also.
One question related to One Health. It's mentioned several parts in the documents, both documents, but mainly focused on nutrition, food safety, or linked with other concepts like One World, One Welfare. Do you think that there is room for further exploring how the One Health approach can be considered, like synergies with other health partnerships, projects, etc.? Frank?
So there probably is. There is a partnership on animal health and welfare, and it will continue to develop and evolve its program over time on that. I think the One Health approach is bigger than just animals and humans. It's also soils and plants, because it's all part of the food system. So look, there's probably more detail on that in the document than we've showed on the slide. Maybe the slide is a bit limited in terms of portraying the holistic, I suppose, approach that we see in relation to One Health.
Jean-Louis, you want to add something?
Exactly the same response. We have different concepts. One Health is a very interesting one, and it's health of the environment, health of the animals, health of human. For example, if we to make progress in the One Health context, we can have a good collaboration between projects on livestock and project from the soil mission to think about the concept of health of the soil, because the soil is the basis of production. We forget the soil since a long time, indeed. And it is very important to how we can use the concept of One Health to make progress in soil fertility, thanks to livestock, in our case, but also thanks to overcropping system for people working in plant production.
So we have time for one question. I'm gonna put this one. It's a difficult and provocative question. Okay, what's the clear and short response to those who claim that any extensification of animal production will inevitably lead to higher consumer prices on meat, milk, etc., and increased environmental footprint, primary emissions per unit produced?
That's a very complex question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose, okay, how do you answer that? It goes back maybe to one of the earlier slides that we had, which is some work that was done many years ago that talked about the diversity of livestock systems that exist within Europe, and that slide, and I think that diversity is important, and that diversity is a strength of European livestock production. So what we are saying is that we don't want that map to all change to one color. There's no one optimum system with some level of extensification that's lower than the average now, for instance. But within each of the systems that exist, there is room to improve them across the domains that we have mentioned, the five domains. So so if there was whole scale extensification of European livestock production, um, well, there'd be huge consequences, I guess, in terms of not just food production, but also the economy in areas and so on. Um, so I, and consequence on food price. So I don't think just to say extensification is the route that we need to go. We have that's not what we've said. We've said regardless of what system you are in, there are opportunities to improve that system through circularity, through efficiency, and through diversity. So that's maybe not quite answering the question that was asked. But I think it's too simplistic to say, and I don't think the question was implying this, that we should extensify our intensive systems. That may happen in some places, and that might be the appropriate response in some places. But there are a lot of improvements that can be made through efficiency, circularity, and diversity in intensive systems and in extensive systems. So, Jean Louis, you've had time now to think of a better answer while I was given that.
No, no, no better answer. It's very difficult. And uh, concerning the price, the price for consumers, there is some research in economy keeping in mind what they call the real price. And the real price is the price of the product in itself plus the price of the negative impact to the environment. And this true price is 2 times more than the real price. So it's depend how we calculate the price first. For sure, here the question is for the price of the food, and if we extensify a little bit, we will probably increase a little bit the price, unless, as we claim, that we can have progress in circularity and diversity to counterbalance this effect. But the objective is not necessary to extensify. It will depend on the system and the region in Europe. The objective is to improve the system in itself, and improvement of the system is not necessarily extensification. It could be intensive, more widely spread extensive system. It could be a solution. But again, we have problem of how to say, the value chain approach, and how we can manage intensive system spread everywhere in the country and not only concentrated in one area.
Well, we're coming up to our time, so we have 2 minutes left, and we have like 5 or 6 questions here. I will not be able to put them forward. I will just move to this slide and tell you that some of the replies on the questions that you are making, you can find on these documents. One of them you can find on the role of meat in society, and others as well. So yeah, please access to that, because we cannot reply them, especially because these are long reply questions. So I will not be able to put them forward because we need to finish on time. So I would remind you to eventually register online or in presence on the 20th of November. And I would give time to Frank and Jean-Louis to say a few words to finish before we wrap up, because we cannot, I'm sorry for the people online, but I can't put more questions forward. I'm sorry. Frank, you want to?
Look, like to thank everybody who attended the webinar. Hopefully, you have found it interesting. Hopefully, you would see that the overall approach that we are taking to identifying the research and innovation priorities makes sense. There is a coherent framework, and I would encourage you to have a look through the actual SRIA itself, and indeed the vision paper as well. And no doubt we will be talking on these topics again frequently over the coming years. Jean-Louis?
Yes, I want to thank the audience, and I hope you spent an interesting moment learning about our vision and about the strategic research agenda. And please help this document as you want and as much you want.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly it. You can find the documents on our pages, and yeah, come back to us with any proposals, issues, questions. We'd be happy then to put them forward. Thank you for being here, and yeah, we will finish on time. Thank you all. Thank you for our speakers, Frank and Jean-Louis, and of course to Susanna, which is in the behind the scenes organizing all this. Yeah. See you soon, eventually in November, online or in presence in Brussels. Thank you.